Hey guys, and welcome to Petrol Ped, and welcome to the all-new Ford Mustang Mach E. Finally, a car that can go toe-to-toe with Tesla. I have so many things I want to talk to you about this car and so many questions to answer, including the big one: should it really be called a Mustang at all? Yes, having this Mustang badge on the front of an electric car is probably for many complete and utter heresy and an insult to the heritage of what Mustang stands for. Interestingly, there aren't any Ford badges on this car at all. Mustang is the brand that they're going with, and for me that's the important word. Mustang is a brand. And I don't think this car's trying to be a V8 Mustang. It's just utilising something a bit edgy and a bit different. And I honestly don't have a major problem with it being called a Mustang Mach E. But I can imagine many people do. And I bet it's properly got under the shirt of a few people. But I don't think that's a bad thing. In terms of what the car looks like, well, let's start with the front. I really love the front end of this car, and clearly because it's an electric car you can have much cleaner front end. You don't need big openings for lots of radiators and lots of cooling, although we do have some active slats here that open when the car's at speed. Front end of the car, really nice. What about the rest of it? So it's a compact SUV format. This car is in infinite blue, and I need to apologise for the massive decals down the side. So I've got this car thanks to my friends at Hendy Ford in Portsmouth, and this is actually a Ford UK car currently doing a tour of Ford dealerships in the UK, and I am super lucky to get access to this car for the day. But let's just have a chat about the different options in terms of battery pack, which gives you range, and drivetrain. I've made some notes on my phone because it's quite complicated. You've basically got two options in terms of a range. You've got a standard model and an extended range version, and then you can choose each of those in either rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. So if we just go for the rear-wheel drive one, because this is an extended range rear-wheel drive, but standard rear-wheel drive has 75 kilowatt battery pack, good for 273 miles, and that's going to cost you from £41,000. And then this extended range model has a 98 kilowatt battery pack, but this is the really cool thing. That is good enough apparently for 379 miles of range. And that is why in the opening statement I said, finally we have a car that will go toe-to-toe with Tesla, because that I believe is more than a Tesla Model 3. And this car is just under £50,000. And then you can get the all-wheel drive version, which gives you better acceleration, because the rear-wheel drive will do 0 to 60 in about 6 seconds, and the all-wheel drive will do it in about 5. All-wheel drive, standard 75 kilowatt, will do 248 miles and cost you £46,000. And then the extended range all-wheel drive will give you 335 miles, and that will cost you £57,000. But the two interesting things for me is those range numbers are much more like it, and the price point from £41,000, it's not silly money. I know they're still not an everyman car, but it's much better. But what about charging? Now then, how fast this car charges depends on whether you go for the standard car or the extended range car. They both support fast charging. Standard car will do up to 115 kilowatt per hour charging. The extended range models will do up to 150 kilowatt per hour charging. So not quite as fast as a Tesla, but you do have to find a charger that's operating that quickly. To give you some charge times for the extended range, which has the larger battery pack, a 10% to 80% charge on a 150 kilowatt charger is going to take you about 45 minutes. For a similar charge on the slightly slower 115 kilowatt per hour charger on a normal version car, that is about 38 minutes, and both cars will charge quite happily overnight on a 7 kilowatt home charger, an AC charger that you would find on your normal wall box you'd have installed at home. So pretty good charge times, not quite in the realms of your Tesla superchargers or things like Porsche Taycan, but don't forget you've got to find these fast chargers, but not bad at all. So let's take a wander around the rear of the car. Now, so far for an EV review, I think we're doing really good. Impressive range numbers, a pretty good price to be fair, and also the charge times are very reasonable and very respectable. But this car has way more to it than that. I think it's a good looker from that rear 3/4 angle you're looking at. I love the back end. There's a lot of Mustang kind of family DNA in that. It's got quite wide hips on it. It's a lovely looking thing. But no Mustang's ever got this much practicality. The boot's pretty good size, 400 litres of boot space at the back. You can drop the seats because it's this kind of compact SUV format. But then you've also got a front boot, or frunk, or fruit, however you want to refer to it, because it doesn't have an engine, right? So you've got another 100 litres of storage capacity at the front of the car, making this super, super practical. It's a good car, but the best bit is how you get in the doors. It's ace. So you've basically got, you can either use a normal key, good old traditional, you can use your smartphone, or on the driver's door pillar just here there is a little keypad and you can enter a PIN code. But you've basically got a little touch screen here and the door opens itself and then you do that. I just think that's cool. It's the same thing here. And you've got this little kind of aero winglet to pull the door open. Fantastic. Anyway, let's jump in the back because I have a feeling there's quite a lot of space in the back of this. Just love those doors. Now then, in the back. Hey, there's loads of space in here. Loads and loads of headroom. Lovely pan roof for a nice, light, airy cabin. You've got power sockets that you'd need. Very comfortable. And the floor, there's no transmission tunnel at all, so the floor's really flat. So if you are the unlucky fifth passenger that's sat in the middle, you're still going to have somewhere to put your feet. I really like that. But really, really cool stuff. The bit I really like is in the front. Well, I like it. I can imagine some people aren't going to. Oh no! Quelle dommage! Child locks again! Rookie error. I really should learn from my mistakes. That's the second time in as many weeks I've got stuck in the back of a car because of child locks. Whoa! Yes, welcome to the interior of the Mach E and welcome to the biggest infotainment system in any car I've ever been in. A 15.5-inch central display. Makes some very cool noises. And it is the dominating factor in the interior of this car. I've said on many reviews I'm not a big fan of an iPad stuck to the dash, but I've never been in a car with a 50-inch HD telly stuck to the dash. It is a bit big. Apparently it's bigger than a Tesla Model 3. That said, it's actually quite funky. And I actually quite like it. What I do love in here though is the other screen in front of me. It's a little narrow screen just with the things I need. My range, my speed, what gear I'm in, and other kind of, if you like, driver focused stuff. And then what's lovely is on the dash, we've got the B&O sound system in here, Bang & Olufsen. And you've got this kind of speaker grill material on the dash. And it is just so nice and so different. It's also on the doors as well. And it's a really nice place in here. There are so many functions on here, and we'll talk a little bit about some of them when I'm out and about driving. There's a wireless charge mat for my phone there, and I can do wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. What I would say about the screen though is the screen hasn't nearly got as crisp a definition as I thought it would have, and especially if you go into, it's got some really cool camera modes. I mean, look at that. But the quality of that image for me isn't as good as I would expect it to be. But it's still quite funky. Now, it's about time we go out and have a drive because, as I said, there are some very cool modes in here. You've basically got 3 drive modes: active, whisper, and Untamed. Clearly the Ford marketing department must have had a bit of a brainstorm one Friday afternoon after a trip to the pub to come up with those. And I'm going to basically test each one in what I think the environment that they should be driven in. So we are, for example, going to go into my local town, Chichester, and drive around in active mode. And I want to explain something called one pedal driving, which this car has. And it's really very aggressive, but I like it quite a lot. Then we're going to go and find some B roads and use Untamed. And in Untamed, we're going to talk about the propulsion sound, which is quite cool. And then we're going to drive it back to Hendy to deliver it back at the end of the day. And we're going to use whisper mode. Sounds like something out of Airwolf. But whisper mode is my kind of, if you like, the mode that's going to eke me out the most range, and what I would probably use most on something like a dual carriageway or motorway. So let's get doing some driving, shall we? The weather's turned, it started to rain. That means no external cameras today, so apologies for that. But first things first, I am in active mode, and what I want to do is engage one pedal driving. Now, if you drive a Tesla, they have very similar functions to this, and quite a few cars have quite aggressive regenerative braking. But the simple theory is I just need to use one foot. I put my foot down on the throttle to accelerate, and then when I lift off the throttle, the regenerative braking kicks in, and it is quite aggressive, and it does slow the car down. And actually, if I didn't touch the pedal at all, it would slow the car down to a complete stop. Worth noting, by the way, with one pedal driving, I am engaging the rear brake lights. I often get asked that question with regen braking. The other quite nice thing about driving this car is it's not often you get to drive a brand new car that's been designed from the ground up as an EV, or just a brand new car coming to market. Often cars have been around or evolved over many years. This is a brand new car. It's not based on anything else. It's been designed as an EV, and you can tell for lots of things on the inside. Certainly the inside architecture and sort of ergonomics for the driver are very impressive. So here we come up to this T-junction. I'm now going to lift off the foot, and that retardation is literally just the car doing itself, and I've actually stopped short of that car in front because it was so aggressive. So yeah, one pedal driving, I really quite like it. It takes a little bit of getting used to, certainly working out where the car's gonna stop. You find yourself lifting off and then just putting a bit of throttle back on, and lifting off and a bit more throttle back on. But I guess in town driving like this is where electric cars come into their own. You know, you don't have to worry about range really, because this car would go for days with the amount of range it's got. You don't really consume a huge amount of energy driving around town. And active mode isn't just for town driving. It's worth noting that actually the car on an A or a B road in active mode is pretty sprightly, to be honest. And I think for most users, I think one of these would be in active mode 80% of the time probably. It does all the things you need it to do. It's got plenty of punch, plenty of go. And I do like the old one pedal driving. So yeah, in city driving like this, in active mode with one pedal driving, this thing's really very, very impressive. Although you just have to be aware that one pedal driving is really aggressive. Now then, let's go and find some nice tight and twisty, shall we? Okay, so now we are out of the town. I'm going to engage Untamed mode. And I'm also going to turn off one pedal driving, because when you come off the pedal, the retardation is so firm. I don't want that when I'm out driving. But I'm also going to turn on the propulsion sound generator. And straight away, oh, I love the noise. It's probably one of the better artificial noises I've heard an EV create. It's not trying to be a V8 by any means, but it does sound pretty cool. Now, as soon as you start pushing on with this car, a couple of things become very apparent very quickly. Number one, it is very heavy, well over 2 tons, but all of that weight is quite low down. And as with a lot of electric vehicles, that means it has a pretty low centre of gravity, and that actually means when you get to a corner, it goes round the corners really very well. Probably better than an original Mustang, to be fair. The steering is fidgety, is the best way to describe it. But the big thing that I've noticed, which I wasn't expecting at all, is the suspension setup isn't for me at all. This road's quite bumpy and undulating, and the suspension setup is quite firm, and it just feels like it's unsettling the car. I expected it to kind of travel across that kind of bump and undulation in the road and be far, far more smooth. But you can probably see by the way I'm moving around in my seat, it is quite bumpy, and I'm not a fan, to be honest. In terms of go, it's a quick car. The electric vehicle party piece of fast in a straight line, I mean, this isn't going to go up against Model 3 performance. 0 to 60 in sort of between 5 to 6 seconds, depending on which model you get. It's certainly rapid enough, that's for sure. But when you're on a road like this, it's got plenty of go. The propulsion sound, I just really like it. It makes it sound, a little bit edgy and just a little bit different from an EV. The brakes are very, very good. I haven't had to slam on them yet, but they are pretty good. The one thing I am missing is, in the one pedal driving you have a huge amount of regen. In this I'm regenning now coming down this hill, but not nearly as much as I'd like. I'd love to be able to alter the regenerative braking, and I can't seem to find a setting to do that, unfortunately, and that is a bit of a shame. But in terms of handling around some corners, now we're in the rear wheel drive one and it's wet, so a little bit of slip at the back. So let's just take it up the Petrol hill climb and see what happens. As soon as you go a bit of understeer there, it's got so much mass coming into the corners. On a wet day like today, you can just feel the back end unsettling a little bit when you put the power down, which is cool, very Mustang-esque. I don't get the feeling that this car wants to kill me like most Mustangs I've driven, but it's dispatched the Petrol hill climb pretty good. So yeah, in terms of dynamic driving, when you stick it in Untamed mode, I like it. I like it a lot. Yes, those tight twisties are good fun. Roundabouts are pretty good fun as well, actually. But now it's time to head on to some dual carriageway. I'll just give it a bit of squirt in Untamed up here. It sounds absolutely brilliant. But now I'm on the motorway, I'm going to go into Airwolf mode, Whisper mode. So what Whisper mode is going to do, I'm also going to put a slightly different display on there, I think. We'll go to there and we'll have a bit of navigation. We'll have a nice map showing on there. Look at that, it's lovely. Now I don't have the kind of full autopilot type stuff you'd have in a Tesla, although I do have lane departure assistance, and I've got adaptive cruise, and it's a hands-on feature. I've got a little thing with hands. I'm sure if I probably take my hand, see, I'm kind of continuing around the corner, even though I'm not actually holding onto the steering wheel. So it kind of does have that, but not the full-on autopilot. And in this Whisper mode, the idea is I'm going to eke out as much economy as possible. So let's just talk economy. What I would say is, this is a demo car going around the country showing people what the Mach E is like, and I'm pretty sure it's been driven in Untamed mode all the time. If I look back at the history, efficiency wise, it's struggling to do just a little bit over 2 miles per kilowatt hour. Now I've got it up to nearly 4 miles per kilowatt hour, about 3.7. Now if you're new to EVs, it's super simple. Imagine, for ease of mathematics, this car had a 100 kilowatt battery pack and you were doing 3.7 kilowatts or 3.7 miles per kilowatt hour. That means you get 370 miles of range out of the car. So what are my final impressions of the Mustang Mach E? Well, let's talk about the things I'm not too happy with. It's not a big list, but there's some important things on there. The steering for me just is a little bit nervous and a little bit jittery. It's almost nothing and then everything. And especially on a B road, it just doesn't have a feel. It needs to be a little bit more linear. The suspension setup for me isn't quite right either. It's quite firm, but it's bouncy. So the car kind of bounces down the road, especially on a bumpy B road. It just doesn't quite give you that confidence, that settled feeling you want in a car. And it's quite a surprise because it's quite a heavy car, so you'd think it would just destroy all the bumps and smooth out any road surface. And then these seats for me just don't have enough sideways support, especially if you're pushing on. They're comfortable in terms of how soft they are, but I just want a bit more support. The big screen is an interesting one. I'm not a massive fan, but I am someone who's looking at buying a Tesla Model Y, and that's got a big screen as well, so I probably need to get used to that kind of design element. But the benefit this has over a Model 3 or a Model Y is you've got this secondary screen in front of you with the speedo, so you don't have to look over there to see what speed you're doing, and I really like that display. So I have grown to like that. I don't think the definition's as good as it could be, and there are so many cool features on there. But yeah, you know, the rest of it is a mighty impressive car. I think this car could do the stated mileage. I would love to spend a bit longer in the car and really try that one out, but if I'm doing sort of 3.7 miles per kilowatt hour, I should, with rough maths, get that kind of 330, 340, 350 miles on a range test if I was just doing, you know, 70 miles an hour on a dual carriageway like I'm doing. and that's impressive. And that means this is the first EV that, apart from maybe a Kia e-Niro or a Citan, I think this has got the range for my lifestyle, for my requirements. I know I wouldn't often need 300 miles or more range, but this has got it and it could do it. I could easily drive to our house in Cornwall, and there are very few journeys I do that mean I wouldn't be able to get there on a single charge. So suddenly it becomes a very interesting proposition. And then at the price point, from kind of 41 up to mid 50s, depending on which spec, it's really, I'd get the extended range rear-wheel drive. I think that would be the car for me. I wouldn't necessarily want the all-wheel drive one. It's a bit more money. I wouldn't want the extra performance because this is fast enough. I think sometimes people, you know, you go for these ridiculous acceleration figures. You never really use it that often, but this every day it's punchy enough. 0 to 60 in 6 seconds is quick enough off the mark, and it's got enough punch and it's got enough sprite. But because it's the rear-wheel drive version, you just get that little bit more range, that little bit more usability. So it'll be definitely the car I would go for. Anyway, guys, I need to say a massive thank you to Todd and the guys at Hendy Ford Portsmouth. They reached out to me quite a while ago and said, look, we've got these cars coming in from Ford. They arranged it with Ford to let me have the car for the day, which is really, really great of them. So a massive, massive thank you for that. And it's great to be able to bring you a new car to the channel. I would love to know what you think of using the name Mustang. Doesn't really bother me, to be honest, but I'm sure it'll bother some of you. But guys, this is a good electric car. Like, when I say good, I mean really, really good. Tesla, watch out, because this is coming at you. Well, that's a rather nice GTR. This is coming at you, and it's good, and it's built well, and it's got lots of nice features, and it feels great to drive. Hugely impressive. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that one, guys. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Comments below are always welcome, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to Petrol for plenty more content to come, and I'll see you on the next film. But you take care, guys. Drive safe.